مصلحا ومجددا فارنوا بنظر طاهر وجناني.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah, with us today we have our beloved brother Abu Bakr Rana from California, who is originally from Bangladesh, and today we will hear how he found the true Islam, Islam Ahmadiyyat. Assalamu alaikum, dear brother.
Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Razi. Yes, so Brother Razi, thank you for this opportunity to tell my convert story. I hope and pray that maybe someone might find some inspiration, hope to join Islam Ahmadiyyat the way I found it. So I wanted to just give a background of my life before Ahmadiyyat and my life after Ahmadiyyat. So it's basically, I was born in Bangladesh to a Sunni Muslim family. And, I was, didn't have much formal religious training, education on Islam, just formalities. We were lower middle class. We were struggling in Bangladesh. My father played the lottery to immigrate to United States, and he won the lottery. So we were fortunate enough to come to USA with my mother's sister, my elder sister, when I was at the age of 10. And we came to New York. I lived most of my life in New York. And growing up in Bangladesh, I don't remember ever hearing about Ahmadiyyat, Qadiani, or any type of uproar about it. Didn't really have any understanding, knowledge of Imam Mahdi, or that Jesus Christ is coming back. None of that. So we were just following regular, Islamic practice, culturally, doing Friday namaz at the mosque, and Shab-e Barat, they would emphasize on praying that night. There was no heavy 5 daily prayers, nothing like that. We had Arabic teacher, but just the basics. So, we came to the United States. We left everybody back home. I grew up in a large, family with a lot of cousins from both mother's side, father's side. So it was a happy childhood, I would say. We never worried about money, even though we were struggling. But my mother, I remember, she always had a very strong sense of moral training, do's and don'ts. She was very heavy on those, how to behave, how to respect elders, what not to do, always teaching me and my sister on our manners, behaviors, and that always stuck with us. So shortly after we came to United States, my mother, father, they both started working. They were happy, making some money, helping family back home financially. And my life took a very, very sudden turn. One day, I was about to go to school. I was getting ready, and my mother was doing her preparation to go to work. And I said my usual, Ma, I don't want to eat breakfast. I'm not hungry. So she was busy. She wasn't looking at me. She just said, "Okay, it's your, if you don't eat breakfast, it's gonna hurt you. It's your life." So she didn't look at me. She just looked the other way, and she was doing her work. I could see she was rushing to go to work. And so that day, I come home from school. And, we had landlines, no cell phone at that time. This was in 1993 in New York. we started getting phone calls from people. Hey, we heard your mom had a car accident. Or first it started with your mom is in the hospital. We don't know what happened. She's in the hospital. And my sister and I looked at each other. My mom would never go to the hospital, never go to clinic. She doesn't like the smell of medicine, hospital. She would not even visit any family members in hospital because she just doesn't like the smell of hospital, the medicine and all of that. So for her to be in the hospital, it had to be serious, but, we just didn't think too much of it. And, calls started coming in slowly one after another, and it started to scare us. Like we didn't know what was going on. I called my dad's workplace. He left the work at that time, so we couldn't, we didn't know what was going on. Finally, my dad comes home late afternoon. You can see he cried. In his hand, he was holding a bag with clothes of my mom soaked in blood. And all three of us just broke down, and he explained to us she had a car accident crossing the street on her way to work. And she was severely, had a head trauma where she was, she was, in the operating room and having brain surgery. At the age of 11, leaving everybody back home. We were alone in the United States. The life just turned completely upside down that night. And, the next day we couldn't visit her. She was in intensive care. The word came from the doctor she wasn't going to survive. She had severe brain damage, brain trauma. She would be basically brain dead. She was on respiratory system. We couldn't see her for 5 days. Finally, we did, and she didn't ever look the same. Her head was swollen, and she just looked like a different person. And we couldn't believe what just happened. That was the first shock that I ever took in my life in terms of God realization of why did this happen to us? Why did this happen to my mother, who was a very decent woman, very family loving woman, peaceful woman. So that first question came into my head, why did this happen to us, Allah? I couldn't get an answer, and not being a non-Ahmadi, you have no guidance, no comfort from outside. Then, a month goes by, she was transferred to a long-term care hospital at an island in New York called Roosevelt Island. It's a beautiful island just next to the UN building, surrounded by water. So we would go visit her, but she also, we found out that she was pregnant at the time when she had the accident. And, there was a court case with the accident and with the baby being, I guess, a couple of months already. They didn't want her to abort. They wanted to see if she would survive, if the baby would survive. And, long and behold, she went through her whole pregnancy in a vegetative state, gave birth, cesarean birth, and the boy was, also in hospital, never came home, lived 3 months, and then died. So it was a, double sort of shock, trauma that we had to go through back to back. And, my mother kept on living on oxygen. Luckily, my grandmother, my aunt, came to the United States as a visitor to take care of us. And from that point on, I was being raised by my grandmother and my aunt and my father. And, I was going through into my teenage life at that time. I was in junior high school, and just, that whole family dynamics just broke down after her loss. For me, everything just turned upside down. My elder sister was married at the age of 17. So she moved out. She married a convert at that time to Ahmadiyyat, Mirza Ghulam Rabi. And he was also a new convert, so she married him, and that's how she became an Ahmadi after that marriage. So, off and on, I would go visit their house and see the pictures of Promised Messiah, the Caliphs, and on the wall. And I was curious. I just asked, who are these people? And my sister would always say, this is the Promised Messiah or Imam Mahdi, and these are the Khilafat after his death. And I never understood it. I always knew about Khilafat after Holy Prophet Islam. So I thought to myself, how can this be? They be Khalifa after the first Khalifa Rashidin? And I thought maybe it was just something made up, phony. Like, we see groups of followers in Bangladesh with peers and fakirs and, with those type of things. So I didn't understand it. I didn't take it seriously. I kind of just overlooked it and said, okay, fine, whatever you believe in. But I did question, like, how can there be Khilafat after that first Khilafat after Holy Prophet Islam? And that, immediately stood out to me. I didn't understand the mission of Promised Messiah, who he was, why he's called this, and nothing. I had very little knowledge of Islam prior to Ahmadiyyat, even though, we were practicing it, but we were never taught the teachings of Islam properly and its history background. So, I'm going through my life, up and down, friend circle is, luckily I had some good friend circle that kept me in check. We did, a lot of things that teenagers would do and live the Western life like a normal, youth. Did not really think too much of what's the purpose of life, or, I just had a feeling of hurt in my heart, like why my mom was taken away from me, and towards Allah, that I was kind of displeased and did not find any pleasure in praying, did not find any purpose in praying. I would go to the masjid, non-Ahmadi masjid, and of course there's no connection, there's absolutely no sense of spirituality, just formality. You go to Jummah, you pray, you walk out. You don't even know the members there, if they are regular or they're from out of state. We don't know. You just hi and bye, and that's it. And so, I'm going through that type of lifestyle. And as I said, luckily, I was constantly reminded of my mother's teaching of the do's and don'ts of what to do, what not to do, how to behave, how to act with elders and be respectful. So that always kept me in check. I never wanted to, bring displeasure into, to her soul, even though she was still living. I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't get her input. She was just a vegetative state in the hospital, stuck to a pipe, couldn't breathe on her own. And just because of my grandmother's wish to not pull the plug on her, she wanted to believe that she would come around and maybe come back to life. But that never happened. So she was in that stage for almost 9 years, 10 years. Then in the year, I would say, I was in New York at that time. I was going to college, and September 11 attack happens, 9/11, as we know it. And living in New York as a Muslim youth, that same day I saw the look on other people's face, looking at us like, hey, we did this. It was our fault. For the first time living in America, I felt like an outsider. I felt like we betrayed the people in the United States for this act of crime that we didn't commit. And I remember the look on people's face. They weren't saying anything, but they had that look. And it was not a look of pleasure. It was a look of sort of dislike. And I remember visiting those sites in 9/11 when the towers came down, and I was very close to it. I could not believe that, Islam's name was coming into it, that is, terrorists were all Muslims, and how they hate America. And prior to that, they had tried another attempt on the World Trade Center back in 1991. That was also by Al Qaeda, or supposed to be a Muslim organization. So this time, this was big, this was real. And going into those non-Ahmadi mosque for Jummah during those time post 9/11 was very, very toxic. I would go in there and come out of it feeling very hostile, very full of hate for America. And so it was a divide between us against them feeling inside the masjid. Very political, no spiritual teaching, no condemnation of that terrorism is wrong, killing innocent people is wrong, nothing of that sort. It was all about America attacking our Muslim brothers, using this as a chance and riling people up, drawing the line on the sand that it's us between them. And I knew that was wrong. I felt it in my heart that was wrong. That if this act was really done by Muslims, this is not Islam that I know of. This is not the Islam that we learned about life of Ali Pasha Islam when I was, a child, how holy he was. He would never teach anything like that. And my conscience, just said this is not true Islam, and I could not attend those mosques for even Jummah prayer. I had to stop going, even though I wasn't really praying deeply to Allah. I was just formality, but even that was bothering me. I felt like a hypocrite going into the masjid, living in America, having, this system, this just, getting this American treatment of education and everything, yet having this feeling of hatred. So I couldn't go to the masjid anymore. I just stopped going, and that even bothered me even more, praying from home and not be able to go to the masjid to pray to Allah. And so I stopped going to the masjid, and that almost killed my spirituality. I mean, I was dead. Spiritually, I was dead. I wanted nothing to do with organized religion, especially Islam. And I was in college that time, and I was reading a lot of, taking a lot of comparative religion courses, and kind of learning towards, leaning towards other religious beliefs, and like Buddhism and something like, that seemed like more peaceful. But still, I felt like this is not Islam that I know of. And the craving inside, just kept coming, that where is the help? Where is the help of Allah? Where is the help of Allah? This cannot be it. These Muslims cannot reform themselves. This, it cannot be fixed by a human being to fix the Muslims, to bring everybody together. Where is Allah's help? That was my biggest feeling inside my heart, that this cannot be real Islam. Where is Allah's help? And so, 2001, the September 11 attack happened in September. And the following year, in 2002, my mother suddenly dies in the hospital. Natural cause or something happened. So we hear the news that she passed on. And on that day, I remember I was out of college, just graduated. It was summertime around June 2002. I was still not working. And, I finally had a closure. I buried her. It finally felt like closure, that I can move on to the next phase of my life, and didn't know where I was going. I was truly at that cross path of, where do I go from here as an adult, becoming an adult, and still being looked after by my grandmother and my aunt, my father, so I started praying again to Allah at home just for my mom's soul to rest in peace. Not because I wanted to pray to Allah for myself. It was just for my mother. And those prayers were very, very comforting, deep, because it was coming from my heart. And I was praying for her. I saw her in a dream. She was holding that little baby in her arm, and she was smiling at me, and she looked very happy. And I woke up feeling very happy, and I felt like she was in paradise, and she was in good hand with her baby baby son that she never saw after giving birth. And I saw both of them in my dream, that they were happy. So that gave me a comfort, and I started praying more to Allah for her soul, and slowly that taste of prayer started to come back a little bit. But I couldn't go to the masjid. And right around that time, my brother-in-law, Mirza Ghulam Rabi, he gave me some books to read. He said, read these books. You're out of school, you're not working, you have some time. This will make you feel better. So I said, okay. And my daily routine would be, I would wake up, have my breakfast, and then, afternoon, I would go outside to a park and, just read some books. Still mourning from my mother's death and not thinking about work. So I started reading. First, I remember reading The Life of Muhammad, written by second Khalifa Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmed. And for the first time, I actually learned a little bit of the life of Holy Prophet Islam, and all the things that he went through. And I felt like as if I learned about him for the first time in my life. So again, that gave me an appreciation about what he went through, and as a prophet, and all the revelations coming in, and like a little bit of background. And then I read A Life of Ahmed. That was written by a Christian writer, Ian Anderson, I believe. So I read his life. I didn't know who he was. I understood that he was a holy person, just learning about his background, and up until his prophethood and all of that. So I had no idea who he was, but I saw a great similarity in both of their life, and that gave me some appreciation of, okay, maybe this is a hallmark of a holy person, how they lived their life before, and their adult life and afterlife, they how they carry themselves out. So it just gave me some knowledge about maybe how they take care of themselves, and they were good from the beginning to the end. So I studied his biography, but I didn't know who he was. And then I read the first volume of commentary of Surah Fatiha by Promised Messiah. And for the very first time in my life, I read the translation of Surah Fatiha. I never knew. All this time I was praying in my namaz about Surah Fatiha. Was never told to check the translation. Never even thought about looking at the translation of what I was reading. And as I'm reading his book and his detailed explanation of Surah Fatiha commentary, I just fell in love with it. I felt like somebody's teaching me Islam for the very first time to a soul that's spiritually dying. And it felt like spiritual medicine given to me page by page. Sometimes I felt like as I'm reading, like all around me, I would block everything out, and I would just concentrate on his writings. And I felt like the words were just coming out of the page and teaching me like line by line, and the meaning of Surah Fatiha, the in-depth in that volume. And I had such an appreciation for my namaz, understanding a little bit of what Surah Fatiha meant. And I kept saying to myself, who is this person? This beautiful explanation of Islam. And I read about his life, thank God. And I had no complaint, no reservation. Immediately my heart was saying, yes, true, this is true. And I just started falling in love with him. And then I read Philosophy of the Teaching of Islam. Whatever I understood from that first reading or second reading, he kept showing. What impressed me the most is how he was answering those questions from the Holy Quran and going into details and breaking it down, and even mentioning that his peace will be the best, and prophesizing it, and again, I didn't know who he was. I just read that book, and that impressed me that he was taking everything from Holy Quran and answering those questions and going into a physical life, into a spiritual life, all connecting. And that impressed me the most, that how he was explaining it, and not knowing this was coming from a prophet. I just fell in love with this man, and I started praying to Allah that, who is this person? And just to backtrack a little bit more, after my mom died, because my sister was an Ahmadi, requested Jamaat to take care of her funeral arrangement, and they gladly did that. Even though my mom was not an Ahmadi Muslim woman, they treated her like an Ahmadi family member. So that generosity from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in taking care of my mom, her funeral, her graveyard, and even I think they even paid for her grave. They didn't ask for any money. They just did it. So that connected me to the masjid in Queens. So because I stopped going to the other masjid, I would travel far, long distance to go to the Ahmadiyya masjid from where I was living to from where I was working every day, especially during that year's Ramadan. I would go from work to the mosque, travel almost an hour, and then hour and a half back every night. And every single time I visited the Ahmadiyya Mosque, I learned something new. It was never political. It was, the imams were all spiritual, discourse in the khutbah, in the programs, whatever I remember attending. And my brother-in-law, he introduced me to the members. They felt genuinely good people, took the interest of who I was, and, they felt sorry for me that I lost my mom, and, they took me in like a family, but, I didn't know who they were, but I liked their company, and, I remember that feeling of those men taking me in. I'll come back to that. These men that were, taking me into their mosque and giving me a feeling of belonging. So, that generosity of theirs from my mom's, from her death, to connecting me to Ahmadiyyat, I finally looked forward to going to the masjid. Even though I had to travel long distance, I would look forward to it. And I started praying again. My prayers started to get more deeper. I remember at times, it was so concentrating on the prayers that I would hear my heart beating. I could hear the beating. I could feel the beating from my chest. That it's real. The prayer felt real, and the connection with my Creator was coming back. So I kept praying also that Allah, where's your help? That feeling was always in me, that where is the help of Islam? Where is your help? Who's going to help these people? And again, not knowing the full background of Islam Ahmadiyyat, what was its purpose? Why, who's its founder? So I kept praying to Allah that I'm falling in love with this man named Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and how every book I read, he's showing signs after signs of prophecies, and against his enemies, how he's coming out victorious, and how the enemies are being defeated clearly. And he's praising Holy Prophet every turn of the page, and it's speaking to me. But I didn't know if he was real, if this movement or his mission or his rise to this the stage is for his own self-interest, or if it's something, because I didn't want to get my heart broken later on that this is something fraud. So I had my hesitation with, particularly just one thing kept coming into my mind: is the kalima of promised Messiah Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad same as the kalima of Holy Prophet Islam? Like, I always wanted to see, or at least try to get an answer. Is there any difference between the two of them, or his teaching from Holy Prophet Islam teaching, or is he from Allah that is claiming to be a prophet? Again, I have no knowledge of Imam Mahdi, the second coming of Messiah, finality of prophethood, nothing, none of that. I have none of those baggages. I'm just looking for God, the connection with my Creator, and this man is coming in to show that connection. And every writing of his is explaining how Allah is, how Islam is, how beautiful the teaching is, and what we can do to be a Muslim. And I was just falling in love with that teaching, and I felt for the first time I was learning Islam for the very first time. So I couldn't put the books down. I couldn't just dismiss him and ignore it. And I didn't ask for any signs like that. I didn't ask for any dreams. I didn't ask for anything. I just said, Allah, is his kalima the same? That's all just stuck with me. I don't know why. So, one day after Maghrib namaz, I did my namaz, and my grandmother is next to me praying, and I just laid down. I was tired. And I'm having this dream that I am visiting my mom in that island, in Roosevelt Island. It's beautiful. It's sparkling with like water reflecting from the sun, and it's a beautiful place. And I'm walking there, and all of a sudden I hear the rumors of wars, like enemies are going to attack us. And I see ships, enemy battleships coming into the island. The whole sky is turning almost dark. People are fleeing left and right, and I'm running with them, and there's a sense of fear that we're going to die. They're going to kill us. So we're running for shelter, and I'm dreaming that I'm with a few people running. I don't know who they were, and we ran into a small room. It was dark, nothing. It's a very small room, and there's just like a small bed, cot with no mattress, nothing, and we all hid under. And my body is like half sticking out, half inside, hiding my head, or part of my body was half in and half out. And I felt the army or the enemy was behind me holding a gun to my head. And as I'm about to feel the trigger being pulled, and I knew I was going to die that moment, any moment is going to shoot me in the head and I'm dead. And all I can think of was, I was just saying, this is my last moment, I want to read the kalima, and that should be the last thing on my lip. And I kept reading the kalima, like first very fast, and then the kalima started to get very, very slow and very, very loud, and every single word was just like, being given to me. As I'm reading it, my heart is like becoming slower, as if in slow motion. I'm seeing this, and this is happening as my heart is beating 100 miles an hour. I'm reading the kalima, but it's almost like out of fear, I can't speak, but the kalima is getting slow, but its meaning is becoming more and more clear. And all of a sudden I hear a commotion in the back, and the enemy's gun was removed from my head, and it was like a struggle and fight. And then there was a calmness. And then the door opens, bright light was coming out from outside, and a group of men extended their hands to me and says, "Come with me. Come with us. You are safe with us." And as I go outside, it was exactly the same feeling as I felt when I would go visit the Queen's Mosque with those brothers, where I felt safe from the outside world and from my dying, spiritual life. And immediately I woke up, I was sweating, and I was, my heart was beating, and my grandmother looked at me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." And immediately, as soon as I woke up, the kalima was the first thing I thought of. I said, "This is my confirmation that Ahmadiyyat is the true Islam and the same kalima of promised Messiah." And I immediately signed the bai'at. I read through the bai'at very quickly. I didn't object to any of the 10 conditions. I said, this is perfect. If somebody can live up to these standards, I have no objection. I started working. I was giving money to the other mosque anyway. I would happily contribute financially. That's not a problem. I just want to find my God and find peace, that there is a living God and there is a help of Allah to save Islam Ahmadiyyat. And the more I then read Promised Messiah's books or Khalifa, I remember reading right after that the Invitation to Ahmadiyyat by second Khalifa, where he laid out all the objections and gave the answers. That's when I understood more about why Promised Messiah came and why others don't accept. And everything made sense to me, that this is what I was looking for. A man coming from Allah, not an ordinary man, not a self-made man, but I felt that this problem of Islam and the Ummah only can be solved by direct help and intervention from Allah. And I immediately believed it. And I never doubted his prophethood. And everything after that day, whatever he said, is confirmation. Whatever I heard from, fourth Khalifa was at that time, I would see him here and there giving Q&A sessions. And I met him a long time ago in Canada, Jalsa, not knowing who he was, again, just as a visitor going to that Jalsa. Ghulam Rabi Sahib took me to that Jalsa as a visitor, and I remember the atmosphere was very nice. I remember he was holding Q&A session with small children, but that's all I could remember. I don't remember anything further, but I had no connection with Khilafat. So I accepted Ahmadiyyat in 2002. It was during the month of Ramadan. I remember the masjid was packed and a lot of people prayed for me. And, the following year in 2003, fourth Khalifa dies. I go to the masjid one day. It was our local Ijtima or regional Ijtima, and everybody is just very somber. Nobody's talking. I go there a little bit late, around 10 o'clock, program supposed to already start. I had no idea what Ijtima was or why these people were all gathered in the masjid, so I was just there. But nobody was talking. Everybody was just crying, and like I could see that everybody was just looking down and crying, and I couldn't understand what was going on. But then somebody next to me mentioned that Khalifa passed away, and I remember the look on everybody's face, like they were worried, they were concerned, they were anxious. I remember a lot of people coming from out of state. We were giving them rides to the airport. They were all going to UK to be there with the members and during the election. And so I had no idea about the process, what was going on. I was just watching it on MTA with my sister. And I remember the night when the result came, the election result, and I was standing in the living room. We were all like anxious, just like everybody else. And as soon as, Huzur came on the camera and he said, please sit down. And I immediately sat down on the sofa, and just like the rest of the people on that street, I remember that. I remember crying, just bawling, like, I don't know who this man is, but I immediately felt like he was my Khalifa. I started crying in that dua, and I felt so good. I felt so connected. And then, a few years later, through the MKA, we were had the opportunity to go to UK Jalsa as a delegate, new convert from MKA. They sent a few of us from New York. And, I'm a person, I always watch body language. I always observe how people behave, how people, pay attention to you when they're talking to you. Are they looking at you? Are they distracted? Are they not giving you any attention? I kind of look at this body language of people. And, the Jalsa, it's a busy, very busy event, a lot of things happening. And I hear that we have an opportunity to meet Khalifa one-on-one, mulaqat. So I never, had any thought of what I would say, what I would do. I'm not nervous. I'm just like, my mind is open to anything. And I said, okay, he's busy, probably, it's going to be a high and by thing. And that's it. He's busy with so much work going on, and, everything is just everything is just happening in 100 miles an hour around me in that event. So he must be very busy. And I remember as soon as I walk into his room, his office, he stands up, he gives me salam. And I was looking at him, I'm like, okay, welcome assalam, Huzur. And I sit down, and he has like desk full of papers, books behind him. Everything is all like, he's wrapped around like work. And his eyes is 100% locked into me. He looked down just to see my name, and he said, your first time here? And I said, yes, Huzur. And he said, how do you like it here? And I said, it's beautiful, and I've never been to an outdoor event like this, and or I did in United States, Joseph, but this is so much better. You're here. I can feel the people are so excited, and he said, how are we treating you? How are they treating you here? He said, let me know if they mistreat you here, or you are not being taken care of. You let me know. And he I think he knew I was a new convert, and he said, that I'm very happy you joined and welcome. So I walked out of that room, and I felt respected. I felt like this man who's so busy, a Khalifa of Islam, giving that much time to somebody like me, like who is nothing. That impressed me a lot about a holy man, that this is a characteristic of holy men, that they are all in for Allah and they respect every single human being. And he wasn't impressing, he wasn't like doing to impress me, it just came up naturally. So I picked up on that body language of his, and that impressed me a lot. And coming back from UK Jalsa, I got more involved in the local MKA activities in Amla, and that's how I understood about the system even more. And I also, prior to accepting Islam Ahmadiyyat, I was suffering from a lot of kind of physical ailments, and I was going through a lot of, I had low self-esteem about myself, and I would constantly like worry about things and be depressed. Some days I didn't even want to wake up. I was like a lot of, like suicidal thoughts would come in. Like, I just want to end my life here. I don't know the purpose of this. Why am I living every day? And I prayed to Allah. I said, Allah, if this is your Jamaat and this is your Imam Mahdi that I accepted open-heartedly, help me overcome my weaknesses and my problems that are blocking my path to focusing better. Please remove this from me and heal me properly. And I'm a true follower of Promised Messiah. I came on my own will, and I love him. Follower for that sake, please help me. And miraculously, the problem started going away one by one, and without medical treatment, without anything, and I started to focus more on just being happy. And I was also prior to Islam Ahmadiyyat, I was engaged to my cousin back in Bangladesh. So I told that family, I said, I accepted Promised Messiah Ahmadiyyat. They didn't know much about it in their town, or they heard a little bit, but they said, if this is true Islam and you're happy with it, then that's fine. We know you. You are my cousin, and the family knew me well. And they said, as long as this is the right, path for you, we're with you, no problem. And, when she comes here, she'll see it. And if she likes it, she'll join you. And so I would always have talk with my wife over the phone that, this is what I'm learning. This is the others believe. This is what we believe. And she always used to say, do you think we are not Muslim? Like, are we not Muslim? And I said, no, that's not my feeling. And it's the opposite. Your other side calls us non-Muslims. It's not us who's calling you guys non-Muslims. So it was, so I wrote to Huzur, and, I didn't want to break that promise. So I wrote to Huzur, and I was told I had to write to Huzur if I wanted to go get married to her for permission as an Ahmadi. So I wrote to Huzur, and I said, let me see what he says. I want to see what type of justice he provides here. And the reply came with Huzur's answering, and he's signing the letter. And he said, as an Ahmadi, you should not break your promise. You should keep your promise to the girl and her family. But make sure as an Ahmadi, you make sure the marriage is done by an Ahmadi Imam. And but don't force the lady to convert. It's on her own. She has to do it on her own. Don't force her. And seeing that letter I was so happy. It was like just absolute justice. given by a man of God, understanding the situation, not breaking the rules of Islam at the same time, following the rules and regulations. This is what a just person would say. This is what I was expecting Huzur to say, and exactly. And then I got married in Bangladesh, and because we were cousin, I was always worried about having children and maybe whether they would be healthy or would they have a defect. And I had other family members who had problems with their children when they were married to cousins. So I would constantly pray to Allah as an Ahmadi. I said, Allah is not going to, throw me out on the street and not take care of me. I'm an Ahmadi Muslim. I can't worry about it. But it was in my mind. And I told my wife, I said, when she came here, she met the Lajna group and she started interacting with them. But she also didn't understand much about Ahmadiyya. She, started watching some Bengali Q&A shows, Shotte Shandane, and getting some of the question answered. But I told her one thing. I said, look, if you trust me, coming into Ahmadiyya for protection and for security. That's all I can tell you. I'm learning, you'll learn, but I know there's peace here. I know there's security here. Allah will not throw out on the street. As an Ahmadi Muslim, I have that confirmation, that belief, that as a believer of Imam Mahdi, we are protected. Come, I want you to be protected in this four walls. So she did happily, she signed the bayat, and we started our journey together. And I told her that, if we have children, we would like to give their name for Waqf Now. And I just pray to Allah Ta'ala that, if the kids are born, we'll dedicate them to Jamaat. And whatever you give me, Allah, I'm happy. Just give me healthy children. I can't bear any, disabilities, and I don't know if I could handle it for my children. So Huzur, I wrote a letter to Huzur, and he prayed, and he said, inshallah, nothing will happen. Pray to Allah, and being married to a cousin is perfectly normal, and I pray that your children are healthy. And he accepted them into my first child into Waqf Nafski, and my second child, and alhamdulillah, both of my boys are normal and healthy, and I look at them, and this is the prayer. I see them as my prayer of to my Khalifa for them, that to give me healthy babies, and I hope they can serve Islam Ahmadiyya to the best of their abilities and stay humble. So slowly I started to connect with Khilafat. I genuinely felt the guidance from his weekly sermons and every events I attended in Ahmadiyya Jamaat. Every person, all the workers that were working in the masjid, I thought they were working full time as their job. And when I found out that these are all volunteers, they were there all the time in the masjid. When I found out that they had other jobs, like their full-time jobs, and they were just there as volunteers, that just blew my mind. I said, how are you working and you're always here? And they said, this is the dedication, this is the sacrifice. And that impressed me a lot. And I started getting more involved. And every time I went back to meet Huzur in other opportunities we had, I always wanted to tell myself that I want to come back a better person and work on something that I had a weakness on, and be a better human being after meeting the Khalifa. So, my namaz started getting better. I started going to the masjid for namaz, and, I started picking on things to work on after meeting the Khalifa. I didn't want that opportunity to be wasted and not reform, become a better person, meeting him. I think, I remember one day I was coming back from an Istima, and all of a sudden in the car, I was thinking that, we used to hear about stories of Khalifas of Promise of Khalifa system, how they were spreading justice in the world, and people were looking forward to their rule, to come to their land, to give justice. And here we are seeing that with our own eyes, feeling it, how our current Khalifa is traveling all over the world, spreading peace and justice, guiding others, showing absolute justice. We're seeing by live witness, as a witness to what was before and what stories we heard before, and that hit me so hard that we are truly blessed in living this time of that, seeing what a Khalifa is supposed to be and how it reflects the stories we used to hear from the earlier Khalifas. And also, I remember one time we had a program in the masjid, and a lot of guests were coming in from outside, from other countries, and they were asking for volunteers to take in these guests to our home. So I happily did. I kept a couple with their child in our home, in our first ground level. They were from France, and I never met them. And they started, staying in the house. And I told one of my colleagues at work that we have this guest in the house from France, and she was very impressed. She said, "Oh, you know somebody from France?" I said, "No, I don't know these people. They're from our religious community." And she couldn't believe like how I would open my house to somebody that I didn't know, and I'll be okay with it. And I told her that this is how our community is. That no matter where we go, no matter where we stay, whether in the United States or in other countries, that any family that's an Ahmadi family or believer of Promised Messiah and Khalifa is like family. This is something no money cannot buy. No matter how rich you are, no matter how powerful you are, you cannot buy that type of trust and love. And I felt it, when she pointed it out, and I said, "Yeah, this is perfectly normal, and this happens when we go, and this happens when they come, and we're like family." So this is my story. I remember one thing Promised Messiah mentioned, that you can read a lot of books. You can read a lot of science. You can read a lot of look at a lot of scientific for rationality and for religious references. And he said, put aside all of that. Directly go to your namaz and pray to Allah about me with my name. That am I from Allah? And because Allah sent me, He's going to give you the answer. And that always felt to me like this is what a truly godly person would say, that he has nothing to hide. And anyone who is on the fence, I have a mother-in-law, she's still not an Ahmadi, so I give her the message here and there. And I always tell her that if you don't want to study the books, you don't want to see the videos, or you're not impressed with our interaction at our mosque, pray to Allah, ask Allah directly in your namaz, is this man the real deal? And if your heart is clean and you want the truth, He will show you the truth, just like every other converts and people of faith, found a true Islam through their prayers, dreams, and directly message from Allah. So this is the final take for me, that, with knowledge, with science, if those doesn't impress you, pray to Allah. And so I would tell anybody who's studying Ahmadiyyat or thinking about it, pray to Allah. If this is not for you, Allah will tell you. But if you are truly sincere, you want the truth, just like I was looking for the truth, I was looking for Allah's help. Where is Allah's help? Who's going to help this Muslim Ummah? And that's the Ahmadiyya Jamaat. That was the answer to my prayer. And Prophet Messiah had nothing different from Khalifa Islam, and he has lived a life like a holy man and testified to it. And I have absolutely no doubt about Islam Ahmadiyyat. It's a work in progress for everybody. We learn every single day how to become. We should become better, and the mistake we constantly make, we keep falling. And he wrote, that we keep want to get up and try again. And that's life. But knowing that this movement is from Allah, and Allah is behind this Jamaat, the Khalifa is guided by Allah, that 100% insurance that I can get with no other insurance can give me that type of assurity, no matter how much I pay. And I have that peace of mind in my heart that I'm in the right place. It's just right now a matter of treading this path every day and trying to improve and get better. And hopefully our next generation, our offspring, our children, serve in this line and serve with passion and from their heart. And so that's my story.
Jazakallah, dear brother Abu Bakr, and really emotional and inspiring convert story. And we pray that Allah the Almighty blesses your mother and grants her paradise, and also blesses your other relatives and guides them to Islam Ahmadiyyat as well. Once again, brother Abu Bakr, a really emotional and inspiring story, and we thank you for your time today
Jazakallah.
that you took out to share your journey. And we pray for all viewers that they as well follow your example and do research and ask Allah the Almighty about the truthfulness of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Islam, and we wholeheartedly believe that Allah the Almighty will guide them as well. So, brother Abu Bakr, once again, Jazakallah for your time.
Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum.
If you have not yet subscribed, make sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon so you can get notifications for every new video. Also make sure to like and comment on the video and follow on Twitter and Instagram.
سفينا صل على محمد